Hello again, YouTube. This is Andrew again with Origenesis Studios, and I want to expand upon a little bit of what I talked about last time with Game Maker and movement, variables, all that stuff. I want to try and put out a video probably about every week. I know I didn't put one out last week. I was gone camping. But maybe I can put out 2 today to make up for it. I don't know. We'll see. Anyway, I want to go over a little bit more with movement, and then we'll get into colliding with walls and stuff. We'll make it really smooth. Some of the principles I'm going to be using I learned from Shaun Spalding. He's a really intelligent programmer from what I've seen. He does tutorials and stuff. He's got his own YouTube channel. I'll put a link to him or something. You guys should definitely support him. Anyway, in the create event of our player here, we have not just our move speed, but I've added a couple others as well. I put HSP and VSP. And the reason I did this is because whenever we're colliding left and right, we're going to need one movement, and then when we're colliding up and down, we're going to need another variable for movement. So let's get up here, and let's go into the step event. And okay, so I took a few things out and I refined it a little bit because I realized some of the things that we're typing were a little bit redundant. When I say key left equals negative keyboard check VK left, that's keyboard check returns a true or false value, which is either 1 or 0. So if I'm pressing left, keyboard check is pretty much saying if I'm pressing VK left, which is the left key on the keyboard, then it's true, which would be the value 1. And since left is corresponding us to going left on the screen, we're going to want to make that number negative. So it's going to be -1 if it's true because of this symbol here. And then if we're not pressing it, obviously it's going to be 0. And so for key right, it's positive. Key up, negative, because whenever we're going up, the y coordinate is decreasing. And then key down is positive. And we have got a couple formulas here I want to explain. They're really simple but ingenious. I added a variable here, hors, so that we can store a value in it. So hors equals key left plus key right. So if I'm pressing key left, it's going to be -1, and if I'm not pressing key right, it's 0. So essentially it would be -1 plus 0, so -1. But if I'm pressing right and not pressing left, then it's going to be 1. But if I'm pressing both, it's going to be 0. And I use this right here, the hors variable formula, in this. HSP equals hors times movement speed, or move speed. And the move speed we set in the last video to be 4, and I kept it the same. I showed you in the create event. So HSP equals hors times movement speed. So if hors is -1, then it'll be -4. So if we're pressing left, HSP is now -4. If we're pressing right, HSP is now 4. And the way that we implement that is we just put x plus equals 4. And I'm putting this underneath these comments for a reason. I'll show you in a second. I just kind of, for you guys, for your sake, I'm using these comments to kind of organize things. And for the sake of anybody who decides to come and look at my code, it makes it a little easier to read. So, what am I doing? Not x plus equals 4. X plus equals HSP. There we go. So now, at the end of the step event, if I'm pressing left, my x coordinate is going to move negative. And if I'm pressing right, then my x coordinate is going to move to the right. So you can skip a few steps just by simply assigning these functions to a variable, putting those variables through a formula, and coming out in the final step. We do the same thing for our y, and voila, we have our zoom out here. Okay, so now we have our movement set up, and just so I can show you guys, it will still act the same as it did before. You can see in the room I made some walls, and I'll show you in a second. So everything still moves like it did before, and if I push down and left, or right and down at the same time, I'll move diagonally. I can move all sorts of directions. And what I did for the walls is all I did was I made a sprite. It's the same size as the other one, and what I also made sure that the origin is in the center instead of it being traditionally when you make a new sprite, the origin starts in the top left, which is 0, 0. But for the sake of formulas and more advanced things that we might do later, just to make the calculations a little bit easier, we're going to hit center, set the origin, so the sprite is drawn from the center essentially. So all you have to do is hit center, it'll center it for you, you don't have to figure out what the center is. And I did the same thing for the player. I just hit center, and now it's drawn from the center. And then the object wall, all I did was make an object and assign it a sprite. I didn't hit any of these things over here. I didn't add any create or step event or anything like that. And if we play the game, I go right through them. So obviously there's no collision checking right now because we didn't write any. But I'll explain how to do that for you real quick. Okay, so in the step event, what we're going to do here is, let's zoom in just a bit. Okay, so before we submit the movement, we're going to check to make sure it's okay to move. So if statements, explained them in the last video, it's going to return whether or not something is true. And if it is true, then it'll execute a certain piece of code. So if place meeting, this is a built-in function in GameMaker to check if an object exists at a certain place. So if place meeting x plus HSP y obj wall. So if the wall is, and remember, because of this, our HSP might be -4 or 4. So this could be if the wall is 4 pixels to the left, or movement speed, if x is movement speed pixels to the left or movement speed pixels to the right, with the same y as the player. So the idea here is to make the player collide with the wall exactly. And the way that we get him to move to the wall instead of going into the wall and then moving out, we have to create a while loop. And that just means whatever condition I put inside these parentheses as long as that remains true, it'll continue to do everything in the brackets, and it won't come out to finish the step event until then. So while not place meeting, the exclamation point means not, so negative, well, not necessarily negative, but if this condition is not true, so place meeting x plus sign HSP. So sign just returns either -1 or 1 depending on the value of HSP. If HSP is negative, it'll return -1. If HSP is positive, it'll return 1. So it's x plus 1 or x minus 1 essentially is what that little formula does. Y obj wall. Make sure I have all my brackets. Okay, cool. So while the wall is not 1 pixel to the left or right, depending on which direction you're going, then it's going to execute this x plus equals sign HSP. So it's going to move you 1 pixel at a time. I forgot to parentheses up here. Okay, so it's going to move you 1 pixel at a time until you collide with the wall perfectly. And it's going to make a nice smooth collision. You're not going to enter the wall, you're not going to stay 1 pixel away from it. It just kind of moves you and squares you up with the wall. It looks really pretty. And what we can do is we can take this same code and replace everything to correspond to the everything to correspond to the y coordinate. So plus VSP on the y instead of HSP on the x. Plus sign VSP y plus equals sign VSP. And then again, right here we commit to the movement. So at the end of the step, we just kind of commit to the movement. So now let me zoom out here. And okay, so we'll just hit that check mark. Okay, and let's see if it works. Oh, what did I do wrong? Hopefully this will be good for both of us. I'm not sure what exactly. Oh, I know what I did. Okay, I forgot something. Okay, so we forgot to exit out of. Once we exit out of the while loop, we want to make sure that we're not moving anymore. That the HSP is reset. So it tells that we're colliding with the wall. It's just not telling us to do anything yet. That's what I forgot to do. So let's bring this magnifying glass back over here. Okay, so HSP equals 0. Make sure you're not moving, and make sure that the HSP is 0 before committing to the movement. That way it knows. So it did this calculation up here and set HSP to something, and we never, when we decided that we were going to collide, we never told it to stop moving when we collide. So That's the only difference. That's the only thing so equals 0. So in the horizontal collision, you turn your HSP to 0, and in the vertical collision, you turn your V speed to 0. Sorry about that. So hit that check mark to save that, and we'll save the game. Let's test drive this again. Should work this time. Okay, so now if we go up, boom, perfect, right there, right on the wall. Beautiful. In the corner, it still works in the corner. It works when we hit the side. Now let's try the bottom wall. We hit the bottom wall, and we hit the left wall. Alright, looks like it works all the way around. Beautiful. Beautiful, beautiful. Okay. And just one quick tip. Whoops. When you're putting things in the room, you can hit Shift and Control together to place multiple of an object. Just a nice little tip. And that's made making this box go really quickly. Anyway, that's that. That's collision and a little bit simplified movement. You might want to look at these formulas a bit to kind of fully understand them. It's a little bit of mapping around, just kind of looking at the variables, and you just got to kind of read it. You got to try to take your time to read it, and it'll make sense. Just takes a second. Remember, this negative makes it to where keyboard check VK left. If you're pressing left, it returns a value of -1. So key left becomes -1 because of this symbol right here, this negative. And for the right, if you're pressing right, it makes key right become 1. So, but if there's something you want to do to your character to where they get confused, and if you press left, it makes your character go right, you can always create more variables, like you can make a player state variable, and if the player state is confused, like typically they would be normal, and if their player state is confused, then you can make all this stuff. You can write another collision or movement event and make things negative. You could say that horse becomes negative or something like that. We can touch base on things like that in the more advanced sections when we're actually developing a game. But yeah, that's that, and maybe I can get another video out today or tomorrow. We'll see. But thanks for watching, guys. I really appreciate it, and I really want to get this thing up and going. You might see me use more concepts from Shaun Spalding. I definitely want to give him credit. He's a great programmer. And but yeah, go check him out, guys, and continue to check me out. Thank you so much, and I will see you.